So there's still the theme that fertility is deadly. And yes, it is. Fertility is extremely deadly. And that's why you've been sold into a system of people dying someday and generations rising and falling and developing children and families and communities and cultures and religions and politics and science. Okay, so that right there is proof. It's always been in plain sight, but we've been conditioned to accept that we die someday and been conditioned to accept large families and friends and gatherings and whatever. And so now we're seeing that fertility is actually, yes, extremely deadly. And the family can be extremely deadly because no different than all the different families of diseases. That's why there's so many offshoots of influenza and COVID and all the different diseases that are related to each other, that are just compilations of different things that are related to each other, but they come up differently and they get triggered differently. And so with that said, then also all the therapies are fertility and they're also deadly. Okay, so when you bring things back to the family, and not just the family like out in your community, but the family of diseases. How many offshoots of influenza are there? Let me Google it. How many offshoots of the flu are there? Types of influenza viruses. There are 4 types of influenza viruses, A, B, C, D, and D. Influenza A and B viruses cause a seasonal epidemic of disease in people known as the flu season. Almost every winter in the United States, influenza A viruses are the only influenza viruses known to cause flu pandemic, i.e. global pandemic of flu disease. A pandemic can occur when a new and different influenza A virus emerges that infects people, has the ability to spread efficiently among people and against which have little or no immunity. Okay? So when you imagine when a baby is born, that's a new family of disease, right? Because you are basically viruses, parasites, protozoa, proteins, fungus, and bacteria. And so when you have a bunch of babies born during a season, then that becomes something that's penetrating the community. People get exposed to each other, then they have to develop an immunity from each other. So influenza C virus infection generally causes mild illness and are not thought to cause human epidemics. Influenza D viruses primarily affect cattle with spillover to other animals, but are not known to infect people to cause illness. Influenza A viruses are divided into subtypes based upon 2 proteins on the surface of the virus, hemagglutinin and neuraminidase. There are 18 different hemagglutinin subtypes and 11 different neuraminidase, I can't even say some of these, subtypes, H1 through H18 and N1 through N11, respectively. While more than 130 influenza A subtype combinations have been identified in nature, primarily from wild birds, there are potentially many more influenza A subtype combinations given the propensity for virus reassortment. Reassortment is a process. Now, this is just like humans developing families, okay? Reassortment. So the family out there in your community and the family of viruses are interconnected. Reassortment is a process by which influenza viruses swap gene segments. Reassortment can occur when 2 influenza viruses infect a host at the same time and swap genetic information. Current subtypes of influenza A viruses that routinely circulate in people include A H1N1 and A H3N2. Influenza A subtypes can be further broken down into different genetic clades and subclades. Clades, clades, whatever. See the influenza viruses graphic below for visual depiction of these classifications. So you have influenza A, so these are the parent cells, right? These are the parents. Influenza A, influenza B. Then you have the subtypes, A, H1N1, A, H3N2. Lineages, B, Victoria, B, Yamagata. These are people who, I guess, discovered them, right? Then you have the clades, the groups, 6.8.1, and then 3C2A and 3C.3A. and then VIA, and then Y1, Y2, and Y3. Subclades, subgroups. Select examples. 6B.1a, 3C.2a1, 3C.2a2, 3C.2a3. So when you think about this, is like the types. Influenza A and influenza B is like the, what is it? The greatest generation, and the subtypes and lineages are the silent generation, and then the clades are the boomers, and the subclades are the Gen X. Okay? And so, and I can read all this, but now you're going to see the human experimentation from the petri dish translating into the family, given a culture, politics, religion, science. And then you see domestic violence is when you pit two subcultures, when you pit two lineages, and you pit subclades and types and subtypes and all that stuff, you pit them together and they get parsed out as family members, and then there's resistance. Remember, resistance is futile. Resistance is what causes death. Resistance, too much resistance is deadly. A little resistance makes you strong, but too much resistance will cause breakage. That's called, die suddenly, that's called entropy. And so it's freaking crazy what's going on, and what we're going to be embarking into the future is a type of family resistance. Because yes, the girls are going to be forced to have these kids based upon the system, but we've been given so much time to understand what's going on and to get our body, mind, and spirit straight and right and change the way we do stuff, but people, of course, refuse to change the way they do anything, and so the system is going to make examples out of the people out there, and we're going to watch all over fucking Facebook. We're going to see the running headlines. 22-year-old dies from domestic violence. Even somewhere in my town, someone died from a domestic violence situation. And you're like, Jillian, it's victim blaming. No, it's the fact that we have developed girls and boys who don't know the ways of the world. Their parents don't know what world they're going into. They're not prepared. They're living the Disney dream, and I get it. I was raised on Disney too, okay? And they're not listening to indicators. And I guess when you're under the influence, whatever, alcohol, pot, drugs, and everything, you're not going to listen to indicators. You're not going to take in new information. People get stuck in these programming of having to develop a family all the time. A woman always gets pregnant. A guy is going to have to do, he's going to pay child support or raise the family. And if he's not prepared to do either, then who gets the short end of the stick? Whoever is the weakest in that situation. Usually it's the girl. And that's what's going to happen to a lot of these girls out there, is that they're going to be victimized because they don't know what world they're entering into. Their mother doesn't even know. The mothers out there are so oblivious. I see a lot on my Facebook. The mother's like, oh yeah, look, have a kid, have this, have that, have a big family. Tradition, tradition, tradition. And these girls are not prepared for what is coming down the pipeline. And so we have these offshoots of viruses or people who are in conflict with everyone and everything. And then we have the weaknesses within these genetic lines that then turn predatory. And so I said, yeah, fertility is deadly. Fertility is deadly. It won't matter your feelings on public health therapies if you believe in big families and vice versa. Okay? And so domestic violence coupled with traditionalist microbial Manson family during climate change will be the familial implosion. And so the 1960s was letting you know aggressive sexuality can make you predatory, and then also the family can be just as predatory because they are in resistance with each other. Even though they might come off on the outside as, working together. No, they're always in resistance, even at the micro level, because the microbes are working against each other. And then the traditions of then finding a girl or boy to marry off, and you don't know what it is you're getting out there. Oh my gosh. And then we have the Shakespearean tragedy, the Montagues and the Capulets, always in conflict. All right. And so domestic violence coupled with traditionalist microbial Manson family during climate change will be the familial implosion. The stress is going to be astronomical for everybody. So respected surgeon Lance Johansson pleaded with the judge not to let his daughter's boyfriend out of jail or he would kill her. How many times have I heard that in the past? That some man or woman was stalking their significant other and couldn't let go, and one of them ended up killing the other. Because if they couldn't have them, then no one could. And when you get with someone who is that unstable, and some of these women don't even realize they're walking into the spider's web, it's done. It's just a matter of time. People become obsessed with their targets. It's crazy. And that's why that's why you don't want to invite strangers into your world. I mean, I have, and I've done that. And I'll tell you, people around me that were watching what I was doing, they were like, what the fuck, Jillian? Believe me, I've stayed in situations longer than I should have, and I could have died in a situation. When I finally left, oh my God, it was pretty harrowing. But the person they could have killed me. I could have been human trafficked. Oh my God, I could have. But I got fucking lucky. I got so lucky this person wasn't going to destroy me. But I was in a situation that could have ended up like that. And when you're in that type of situation, you remember, that's such a memory that will never leave you. But then you get into another situation that probably, and then your indicators are so much more sensitive that you can kind of tell, but you don't know people. So I got lucky, but now in this society, it's so hard to know who people are, what their their background, but not all the time. I mean, it's a crapshoot out there. It really is. Some people get lucky and they get together, but you never know what's lurking in the hearts of mankind, because now with this climate change, all the different things that are laying dormant do come to surface, and you don't know when that's going to trigger. And that's the scary part of climate change. And forging into this future is that the climate change plus then the stress and the traditions, and then the rolling back of things that used to save what we thought would save women or men. Yeah, we're looking at what's going to happen with Project 2025 and Agenda 47. And again, I can't be upset at it, because that's what the system always intended, was a type of scale down, but giving you everything you want and showing you the consequences of your choices by looking at what your peers are going through. Learning from your peers. Some of your peers won't survive because they didn't have enough to survive. And so then you learn from their situation. Should you be arranging marriages for your daughters? Should you be thrusting your girls out there on Front Street? Should your boys be taught to be, so male that they destroy things when they are male? I mean, I don't know how any parent is going to teach their kids how to survive the future and even the present. I don't even fucking know. And so another young lady, mothers and fathers, you need to figure out how to reach your young ladies. This is literally an epidemic. Selling the Cinderella princess dream to your daughters and selling the males should just go and take it to your son. Take it to your son. This is what it's turned into. And it becomes worse and worse when we keep procreating each genetic line, and everything will be funneled through the family. So imagine when you have so many people who are in deficiency, forced to now be together, a family. Even through the court system, the custody and all that stuff. The conservative system will make sure that everything gets funneled through the family. And you know how deadly the family can be. I've already said, when families are in resistance, they become deadly to each other if they can't release the demons. And some people are forced to be in a situation, and then it becomes a tinderbox. That's why you don't force yourself into anyone's situation. You don't force to have relationships when they're not compatible, because it becomes something that could be deadly in the future. And so domestic violence will get worse and worse when you invite strangers into your world. You basically are dancing with the devil. And I've seen a lot of young ladies inviting strangers into the world, and I've done it too. And for the grace of God, I survived the situations, and I would never do those situations ever again. But it's extremely dangerous out there for all who don't understand the ways of the world. And even arranged marriages are just as deadly, because you don't know what you're inviting. And just because he or she looks good on paper, it doesn't mean jack shit. Remember, the Unabomber looks good on paper. Ted Bundy looked great on paper. Yeah. Dexter Morgan on Dexter looks great on paper. And I would never return to my youth ever again. Those were some of the hard freaking lessons that luckily my mother prepared me for. prepared me for. But some of you will learn the hard way, and some of you will not survive the hard way, because the men out there and the younger men are not prepared for the world that you want them to live within, and the world has changed. So this whole Disney shit is now a fallacy. Well, it's always been a fallacy, but it kind of brought people together under that illusion, and of course they were rewarded for it by pleasure and paradise and baubles and social capital and money and power and fame. But now, no, it's not going to pay to be living in Disney princess world. These Disney princesses are not surviving their peers. Prepared me for. Jesus Christ, okay. Sorry. And so, I mean, that was the point of the 1930s in Disney, was to develop an illusion. And now the illusions are melting. They're deteriorating. And people are realizing that they were living under an illusion that is going to be deadly if they don't figure it out. I got to just correct this. I'm sorry. Okay, prepared me for. And so, yeah, I mean, I was raised with Disney. I was raised with Pretty Woman. I was raised with certain things, not so much like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, because that was really aggressive. But I was raised with soft ways of being the female that is submissive and all this other shit, with a little bit of battle, a little bit of, okay, I can battle it and survive it. So I had a lot of different ideas and ways to survive situations programmed within me, but some of these girls out there don't have the luxury to have that, and so they don't survive the situations, or they get maimed so hard that eventually they will die from the battle wounds, from being in those relationships that were never good for them. And when you are stuck with families that are not good for you and you can't get out and you're stuck until you're forced to get out, then it's done with. How do you survive that? How do you make up the difference when you have 5 kids with someone that you don't want to be connected to, with a family you don't want to be connected to, and you're forced to now face that shit every single day? Yeah, that's not something that people survive. And that's so fucking sad. It's sad. And so, at this point, you can't stop someone and you can't hold everyone in jail for what they could do. Remember, but there's no such thing as pre-crime. I mean, they can watch people, but until they commit a crime, they can't do shit, right? So once it's done, you have to either survive it and then get the book thrown at the perp. If you can't listen to indicators, you and your young ladies are not in tune to the ways of the world, they will die at the hands of their abuser. The police and the judges can't stop what hasn't happened yet. That's why the lawyers and whatever, that's why you can't get mad at the judges, because if the guy has, I mean, yeah, he may have beaten her up, but that's not enough to hold someone. You get charged for domestic violence, and then it's up to the girl to figure out how to get the hell away, or do something different, go to a shelter or whatever, and find ways. But even then, you get, like, let's say, a restraining order. People don't always listen to restraining orders. It's not, once you get involved with someone who is that unstable, you're going to have to get strong and be in a situation where you have to defend your life and you have to do what you got to do. And sometimes if you can prove that you had to defend yourself, then yeah, the force of death is what has to happen. But you have to be in a situation to call for that. You can't just go and you can't go and you can't be calculated. You can't hunt someone. But if your abuser hunts you, then you have to be the one to know how to defend yourself. And girls who are 22 years old are not trained to know how to defend themselves. They don't even know how bad it could get because they were so sheltered. That's the scariest of all. They don't know how bad it could get. And sometimes it's so bad, it becomes deadly. It's like, fuck. And so at this point, you can't stop someone. You can't hold everyone in jail for what they could do. Once it's done, you have to either survive it and get the book thrown at the perp. If you can't listen to indicators and your young ladies are not in tune to the ways of the world, they will die at the hands of their abuser. And the police and the judges can't stop what hasn't happened yet. And they can't assume because someone gives off indicators that they hold them before they commit the crime. Once they commit the crime, then they could be held accountable. But then your young lady or son would not survive that situation. Okay? So, and I'll tell you, there are indicators of obsessive situations. When men become so controlling, that's already an indicator, is power and control. When men or women wield that kind of power and control over their significant other, that's an indicator. And once you're in that situation, I see, that's the thing. I wouldn't even want to get involved with anyone at this point. Okay, so another indicator. Once a man hits you once, it'll get worse. Those are the major indicators when a man hits you. When he hits you behind closed doors, that's a sign to get the hell out. When he hits you in front of his friends and family and no one does anything and says anything, yeah, it's going to get worse. And if a girl gets beat up and doesn't die from that situation, it'll only get worse. And why should any person let something like that escalate? It's pretty much too late. Both men and women need to pay the fuck attention of the world around them. You don't know what you're inviting and who you're inviting, especially with climate change and the people's triggers are at the surface. And once you have a child with somebody, you're connected to them forever. And you'll have to survive custody battles, hearings, and even mothers don't even survive their pregnancy sometimes. Because either she dies in pregnancy, or she dies at the hand of her abuser, or who knows what else. And I knew a long time ago, back then, there was no way I was going to be connected to someone forever. And so I got the luxury to have that choice back then. Now in the future, women are not going to get the choice. They'll be stuck with that situation. And it could be deadly. Because when a woman is forced when she can't get the birth control and she can't get to the clinic to release the demons, whatever, and then she's forced to carry that, not only will that also harm her insides, but she will be connected to someone that may not be good for her. And then he's forced to deal with that, and maybe he doesn't want to deal with it, and maybe he's not even in the presence of mind to file any kind of paperwork to give up the rights, because that would include a hearing, that would include embarrassment in the community, that would include a lot of things that some men are not even prepared to deal with. And so it'll be deadly for the girl, deadly for that whole family. And that's what the system is setting up for the future. And that's some scary fucking shit. That's some scary stuff. But again, we've had so many years of seeing what happens if we paid attention. The left have been telling the right, and the right's been saying, okay, one of these days you're going to be held accountable. The left's like, okay, here's a way out. Learn something. The left and the right were teaching us something. But people are like, oh, I'm going to stay left or I'm going to stay right, and that's it. And they don't want to get out of that. And that, hey, if you want to blind your eyes to the other arguments, then yes, one day, judgment day. Believe me, I learned the hard fucking way on a lot of things, okay? So I know. And so once you have a child with somebody, you're connected to them forever. And you'll have to survive custody battles, hearings, and even mothers don't even survive their pregnancy sometimes. And drugs and alcohol do not help your situation of survival, because now your indicators or fight or flight are dulled, and then you invite the devil into your world. And sometimes the devil is hard to shake. Women don't even understand the world they live in. It's a fucking dangerous world. I remember when I was talking with somebody a long time ago, maybe 20-something years ago, and I'm really in tune with like dangerous places and all that stuff. And even walking down the street, I'm like all like, ugh, you know, because you don't know who's lurking in the bushes and stuff. And so someone says, my God, are you afraid of everything, Jillian? No, because I learned at a very early age how dangerous the world is. I learned at a very early age how dangerous my peers can be. Now, I had a lot more lessons to learn, but that was already instilled in me. Then I had to strengthen that indicator of awareness. But then there's also other factors in play that I had to fight with, which is hormones and fitting in and all the other shit. Survival. Okay, so this girl that died at the hands of her abuser, this girl is just a baby, 22 years old. And she's out in this world completely oblivious to the reality, because she's probably lived in a very homogenized atmosphere, completely protected by her parents. And then some predator found her weakness and she became prey. Yeah, she was not prepared for the world around her. So when I see these parents out there who are like posting these pictures of the dad taking all the darts and the mom taking all the darts as they're raising their kid, The parents may take all the darts, but if that kid doesn't have some dart in them to learn from their mistakes, they're going to walk into danger just like this young girl. So the outcome of parents, all the parents taking the darts for their kids between 1 and 18, when they're 19 and they're thrust out there in the world, going to college or doing whatever, they have no battle wounds, they have no memory, they have no lessons to learn about the ways of the world, and they'll walk into the lion's den, and they will be cannibalized by their peers, by predators, by those who know how sheltered they have been. And so, yeah, I mean, it's so crazy. It's so fucking crazy. And so some of your parents think shielding your sons and daughters from the ways of the world is going to protect them. No, it'll actually make them even more of a target. Because predators can see weakness. They know who's experienced and who's not to the ways. They know who is not street smart. And when girls and guys are not street smart, they'll walk right into shit that they can't get out of. Because they didn't have the training to. They were too protected from everybody. And so at this point, it's too late. Most parents think that 100% protecting their kids from everything is going to save them. You can't be with them 100% of the time, and you can't control the hormones when they are raging, especially when they hit puberty and freedom from the home. And so we are developing predators out there, and some of them are sexual predators, and we're developing bait, which is basically these hot chicks with their mothers putting them out on Front Street. And there is no way to know what's going to happen to these girls and guys when they finally get together, and we will see it in the headlines. Okay, you saw what happened with Chris Watts and Shanann Watts. Everything looks great on the surface, but behind closed doors, man, shit was not going right. And then he becomes a family annihilator. That was a major indicator of what was to come, was the whole Chris Watts case. And then, of course, girls trying to get with guys. Then you had the Jodi Arias and the Travis Alexander case. And those were put out there in the headlines, so you saw what happens when girls become obsessed, guys become obsessed, or using women, and these girls are not prepared for that and they get retribution. It's pretty bad. That's why the system is trying to control reproduction, because you can't train boys to be something they're not when the fathers are instilling the male bravado in their sons and vice versa. The women are instilling submission and aggressive sexuality into their daughters, and then this is what you get. You get a war, and the women will come up short with the short end of the stick because they weren't trained to battle it out and walk away. They were trained to stay in it and try to change the man. Which is why I'm so glad I released my demons. I dealt with the pain and suffering. And my husband was amenable to me saying, okay, we need to do things this way so I don't fucking die. And he understands. And that's the thing. You know, men are going to be what men are going to be. Women will be what they be. It'll take one person to train the other person that if you want to be in this relationship, we can't die being in this relationship. Okay? We've got to find a way to hold back and not completely destroy each other within this relationship. And it takes one person to change the course of that relationship. It takes one person to save themselves. It takes the other person to be respectful enough to understand what needs to happen for both, and they both find a way to compromise. What do you mean compromise? Well, yeah. Compromising your needs and wants because that's what you're trained, then you become relatively self-regulating. Women need to learn how to be self-regulating, so do men. And when you're in a relationship with someone, then you both become self-regulating, so that way you're not completely cannibalizing the other person. But if you can't learn how to be self-regulated, then you will constantly feed off of somebody else until they're done. And that's what goes on in these relationships. And so, but when you're married, you're signing the dotted line that you are accepting whatever it is, and you're going to have to fight it out between you and your husband and significant other. But if you're not married to someone, then if you're able to walk away, walk the hell away. But some people don't. The person developed an obsessive contract with you and with that girl or with that guy, and then trying to extricate yourself from something you never signed on the dotted line. That's the danger that women and men are in right now during this climate change. And so, which is why I'm glad I released my demons and dealt with the pain and suffering, because yes, the darkness is looking to procreate and to take what they think is theirs. And we have a lot of children born with darkness and are even living in darkness. And when they finally get exposed to the light, they don't survive their peers. And the justice system is the way it is because you can't accuse someone of what could happen. Both that man and women invite karma into their world. If they hadn't gotten together, the justice system wouldn't have to get involved. It's when the women and the men invite predators into the world and then expect people to save them from something that could have potentially happened. And when it does, then potentially we can hold them accountable. But then the victim could have died or get so maimed that it wouldn't make a difference the kind of justice you can go and get in the justice system. That's what these young girls and boys don't understand, is that a crime must happen first before justice is dealt. And even then, the justice is not enough. Sometimes justice is doled out in prison, but the girl can't come back. And prison justice is unforgiving. But that's why the women must learn how to protect themselves. My husband's not around me 100% of the time. I have to listen to indicators. I have to be aware. I have to know what it is I'm inviting into my world. Sometimes I put myself in a position of like, oh my God, I could have died in that situation because I didn't know the person. But sometimes, when you invite handymen or people that take care of the things, you just can listen to indicators and know when something is dangerous, when something is not put yourself in a position, know your exits, know everything. Because you don't know people. You don't know handymen. You don't know your neighbors. You don't know anything out there. So women have to be even more so aware of the world around them because they're not always going to be protected by the males in their world. And that's what these mothers are not teaching their daughters. And so that's why these girls come up the short end of the stick, because they're not understanding the ways of the fucking world. And it's deadly out there. I gotta pee. All right. And so why even get involved with people you don't even know, and why ever get involved with people at all if you're in a profession? Why get involved with people? I know people have to because of work and whatever else, but I mean, this is something that people learn the hard way. And if you're in a profession forced to deal with people, then you better not be giving off some kind of mixed messages, because some men and women don't understand how to decipher messages, even body language, properly. And so young girls are in the crosshairs because they have been depicted as something to conquer in the PORN industry and any other type of movies. And these boys and men don't have enough sense to hold back because their hormones are raging and they've been taught to just take it. And when the system goes to a more traditional approach system funneled through the family, you won't see anything until it ends up in the headlines, and the system will investigate the family, assuming, the family survives, assuming it even bleeds into the school system, because sometimes children's behaviors taught by their mother and father will bleed into the school system. The system knows what kind of signals, indicators to look for when someone has been abused. All right? And this is some crazy shit. And when a family is resisting each other, end up dead, that's kind of what's going on, is going to happen in the future, is what we're going to force people into family situations that will not be good for them. And you're going to see a lot more domestic violence and women ending up dead because they're pregnant and they can't get an abortion and whatever. And that's kind of how shit's going to happen. That's the depopulation agenda. When young girls and boys become sexualized, they end up together forced into a situation. You know what the end result will be, especially with teenagers having sex and having children at such a young age. It is going to be deadly for the whole family. And by looking at some of these kids out there and what they've been through, them getting pregnant with children, and with how aggressive the atmosphere is and the demons that hold within, familial implosion. Traditionalist during climate change is familial implosion. That's the future. So prepare yourself when the conservative government comes in. Yeah, it'll be literally judgment day for everybody. The left is not going to like being held accountable, and even some of the right-wing people need to clean up their background to make sure they're not hypocritical. Because even the right-wing people have shit to clean up in their background so they don't end up dealing with judgment day. But eventually, yeah, people who don't clean up their backgrounds will end up with a judgment day type of situation. And that's the scary thing that's going on, okay? But remember, we've been given so much evidence, so much information. We've been given classes to take. We've been given help from the government to understand what domestic violence is, getting off of drugs, alcohol, nymphomania, whatever it is. And we've been shown what happens when you have so many children. The left was trying to teach you, the right was trying to teach you. And people that stay on either side, one side or the other, they don't understand the other arguments, and they get stuck in one side, they'll eventually be the example of what not to do. It'll take someone to step out of the war and understand the lessons of both the left and the right, and step the fuck out of the war, release their demons, eat food, do whatever you gotta do, and get out of the situations of inviting karma into your world. And when you invite family and friends and politics, religion and science and all that other shit, and you walk into danger because you now have to be packing heat because you're afraid someone's going to pop off, yeah, you're inviting karma into your world. And so with the way things are, I mean, the way the climate is, it's so hot, it's so cold, it's dangerous. People are popping off left and right. This is when staying home and staying safe and not practicing the traditional ways, the system is giving you every avenue to protect yourself. But people resist. Resistance is futile. It's died suddenly. You have delivery services. You have Netflix. You have the internet at your fingertips so you can learn stuff without having to be around a bunch of diverse people who you don't know their background and what's going to trigger them. There are so many ways of which you can protect yourself as a person. And if you're so resistant that the world has changed, you'll walk into danger. You'll fly into danger. People know that's dangerous out there because they're packing heat, and they still will walk into danger. Once you pack heat, once you invite something into your world, you're around diverse people, you're basically saying, well, I don't really care. I'm trusting everybody. I don't care about myself. I don't care about my safety. That's essentially what people do when they walk into danger around diverse people they think they know. You don't know everybody. But Jillian, that is that's now the new world. It was showing, we were seeing evidence of how dangerous people can be in their politics, religion, science, and family, and whatever. We were seeing that in the headlines, but we were like, oh, we're special. We're not like them. Well, as the environment becomes more aggressive and people's demons are coming to surface, and you're seeing more people die from domestic violence, you're seeing more of these girls sexualized, well, now you're going to see exactly what you have been resisting your whole life. You've been living under blinders, under the illusion of your politics, religion, and science, dogmatic principles. You didn't want to see danger for what it was because you thought you were special. You thought you were immune to the world around you. No. And so yeah, people do invite danger into their world. They walk into danger voluntarily. They invite karma. Oh, but they hide behind their religion, hide behind their politics, hide behind their science. Okay, fine. So then you can't feel sorry for people who end up succumbing to situations that they could have prevented if they hadn't walked into danger, if they hadn't invited that karma into the world, if they hadn't resisted government recommendations of staying home and staying safe. Potentially even wear a mask, right? You never know what someone's microbes could cause an influential immune system activation. And so you have 5 months before the conservative regime comes in, before the Heritage Foundation takes over, before the right wing take over, you have a chance now to figure out some shit. Clean up your act, find a way to strategize your survival. Because once that conservative regime comes in, and I'm assuming it's going to, hey, I could be wrong, but you might as well prepare for the worst. What do you mean the worst? Because when mom comes home or when dad comes home and he or she is the one that lays down the law, because you've had such freedom, right? You've had such allowances. It's all relative to which side you stand on. To act out, be whatever you choose to be, whatever, right? Like when my dad, when he was home and my mom was off doing whatever, and my mom was the one that laid down the law, we were like, oh yay, we can sigh of relief. Dad's home, we can kind of get away with stuff. We can manipulate him, and he'll be like he's like the good guy, right? The good cop, bad cop. And then when mom comes home, oh my God, all hell's breaking loose. Well, that's kind of what's going on. Is we've had dad, who was kind of a pushover, right? Biden, kind of the pushover. But once Trump and once his regime comes in, oh, it's mom. She's going to be laying down the fucking law. She's going to hold everyone accountable. She's going to get everyone all up in our, oh yeah. So prepare yourself. Prepare yourself for the bad parent, the bad cop to come in and clean up the fucking message. The cleaner. Because that's essentially what's going to be happening. And you've now been given the opportunity to stay home and stay safe. You can use delivery services. Now you got to be aware of the kind of people you'll invite into your world. You'll now be aware of what you'll be walking into. When you're flying around the country and all over the world, and the TSA and all of them are even more stringent on security and whatever else, it's only going to get worse. And so you're seeing so much, it's only going to get worse. And people are seeing the writing on the wall. I mean, I just discovered Project 2025 and Agenda 47, and I'm not saying it's bad or good. It's just what it is. It's what needs to happen. But remember, I've been telling you guys what's been going on. I've been giving you my background so you understand what the system is trying to do. It's playing both sides, and it is balancing the scales. And we've been given a taste. We've been given a taste. We saw what Trump was capable of, and it's fine. And I understand closing the borders and building the wall and all that shit. Okay, I understand that. And then you have Biden come in and release that and do whatever and give a little reprieve on student loans and give, people, I don't know, access to do whatever. I don't know. If you want to express your sexuality, the system, it would allow you to do that, and that's fine. You have all the symbols everywhere, but those days are coming to an end. It's going to be hard-pressed traditional, and it's going to be interesting to see. I don't even think some of the right-wing people are prepared to deal with what's coming down the line. And so this is a time that if you have alcohol, drugs, and other shit in your background, it's time to clean up your act. Both men and women. Time to clean up your act. Time to figure out whether or not you should be pushing your daughters and sons out there to get married to strangers who you don't know what their background is. It's time for a lot of things. And so I don't imagine a Democrat's going to come into the office this next time around. It will be someone like a Trump. So no matter what, I could be wrong, but prepare yourself for the worst. Prepare yourself for the worst. But you're seeing now, really, a pattern emerging. And yeah, I learned about domestic violence a long time ago. And these 22-year-olds, 20-year-olds don't even know. These young kids don't even know the world they're entering into, and they will learn very hard. They will learn very quickly, and it'll be very hard lessons. And I hope they survive them. But again, the justice system can't save anyone. The police can't save anyone. They always come after the fact. A crime has to be committed first before justice is doled out. Do you really think your girls and boys could survive crimes committed against their body, mind, and spirit? I don't know. I guess you'll figure it out. Bye.